The king is pretty cooperative during this beginning stage of the constitutional government because he really doesn't have a lot of chance to disagree. After the storming of the Bastille, he wears the tricolor. During August, he just kind of lays low, allowing the National Assembly in the Paris Hotel to establish their government and statements. This doesn't mean he agreed, it just meant that he wasn't interfering. But he still wasn't really helping the situation. And so by October 5th, a group of commoner women decide that this has gone on long enough, and they march on Versailles and they capture the family and they bring the family, the royal family, back to Paris and reestablish the seat of government in Paris proper. They establish them in the Tuileries Palace, which is in the center of Paris. And from there, the king is going to be under the oversight of the National Assembly a little more, but also continue to have power within this limited government system. And that government is slowly but surely being defined. And over the following years, from 1789 to 1791, the constitutional government is set up in which men over the age of 25 both vote and pay taxes, where they vote for the legislative branch, which is elected, and it's elected locally so that there's almost a federal local system being set up. Land is redistributed to make it more scientific and equally divided between various lands. And the judicial system is also more localized, therefore providing more quick and fair judgment because it's being ruled by your peers in the specific region that you're from and available to you quickly within your local area. There were also some social changes as nobles lost their titles, and as the civil constitution of clergy suggests that perhaps the National Assembly has religious power to limit the number of clergy members in the country. And that's going to become a fierce debate within the church as the revolution progresses. But the other major change was the power of the king. No longer is absolute monarchy even a consideration. And the system that's set up is a very limited monarchy where the king has the right to have a say in the laws that are made, but by no means even veto power in the end. Instead, the National Assembly, which is becoming the Paris Commune, a more radical group, is also known as the Constituent Assembly, is running Paris from the Hotel de Ville as they seek to establish and maintain this government. And it was going kind of okay until King Louis XIV decided that instead of cooperating, he was going to get help from his wife's relative, the King of Austria. And so he escapes to the border of France, but is captured. And this picture here on the left side is his capture, which brings him back to Paris. As he's brought back, the Parisian people, while used to lining the streets for the king, do line the streets. Many of them turn their back. Many of them are silent. They're certainly not cheering for the king. And there's even a painting of a really poignant moment where the youths of Paris are binding a blindfold over a statue of the King Louis XV, almost in disgracing this king that won't listen to the people and won't deal with this problem of the revolution. And the problem mounted because now, instead of just internal domestic troubles, there were external international troubles. And those international troubles, particularly as countries were starting to fight back to try to preserve the monarchy, led to fears within France, which only ultimately led to a radicalizing of the constitution. Because the king had run away, he had lost any credibility really with the radicals and even with most of Paris and the French. And so by the end of 1791, the call for a more republican government was being established, so that by August 10th, 1792, the people of Paris, led by a woman, stormed the Tuileries Palace in France, tried to capture the king and queen again. They escaped to the National Assembly, hid there, but ultimately, by October of that same year, the National Assembly were forced by the people to declare the monarchy over. And with that ended the first stage of the constitutional republican government of France.